computer. Okay, so Shannon, I wanted to thank you for joining my very first podcast episode. So for those of you who do not know, first of all, some of you know I'm the carnivore lawyer, but I'm also running for Congress for the 3rd District of the Nevada, and it's going to be for the 2026 midterms. I felt it would be very useful to not only just get involved with the entire carnivore community, but the entire ketogenic community, and that's why I've been following Shannon Davis for quite some time, and I reached out and I said you'd be the perfect first participant in my podcast. So I wanted to make sure that we have a very strong, devoted, athletic, beautiful female that's speaking out, that's a proud American. So Shannon, thank you for joining the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. So as I explained to Shannon, we don't have anything scripted. Everything is on the fly. I'm going to try to keep this as professional as possible because my last podcast with Dr. Shafee had a little bit of foul language, but that was just for some harmless, offensive humor. But anyways, nothing scripted, and I didn't bring my Bluetooth earrings, so it's all right. We don't have
I
those
did.
going on. All right, good. So, anyways, Shannon, what I thought about we do first is since we were both getting to know each other's a little bit backgrounds, I was going to ask about your background first, and ask my background, including, why you kind of made a change or a passion of health. So, for the audience, explain your background and why you became a registered dietitian.
Sure. Well, it's probably going to tell my age, which is fine, but I've been a dietitian going on 19 years now
Oh,
and worked in bariatrics for just a smidgen. I worked in organ transplant for about 3.5 years, and the majority of my career has been in nephrology. So, as a renal dietitian in the dialysis clinics, and then the last 5 years of that was pharmaceutical sales, selling a phosphate binder to patients on dialysis. Um, Through my whole career, though, I have struggled with feeling like I'm truly helping people. I felt like I'm helping people just exist. They come to me, they're in need of help. They come with all these meds, with all these diagnoses, and they leave me with the same bag of meds, the same diagnoses, right? Nothing's better. We're just managing better. And so that never fit right with me. And then in 2018, I sort of went down the whole rabbit hole of, okay, what we're doing isn't working. So we must do something different. And mind you, this is completely opposite of what I was taught in school. And it wasn't that someone said, "Hey, let me teach you this." It was me taking my own initiative and saying, "Okay, A plus B is not equaling C. We have more meds than we've ever had. We have a doctor for everything, a hair doctor, an ear doctor, a toe doctor, a belly doctor. And we have tests now, all these amazing machines and tests. And Americans are sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. And it just didn't sit right with me. And so I went down the whole rabbit hole. I started digging into, Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Ben Bickman, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Robert Lustig, all of the people that you and I like are love and respect. And it started making sense. And as you know, once you go down the rabbit hole, you just go deeper. And it's like, it truly was like an aha moment to me. I'm like, why does everyone not see what I see? When we have chronic disease, 93% of our country has insulin resistance. And these are dietary diseases. Why are we medicating them? Why are we not focusing on the root cause, which is our food? And then it starts to make sense. Well, big food and big pharma, I say they're married. When you hear, every commercial is a food junk commercial, and then the next commercial is a pharmaceutical to fix what the food junk caused, nobody knows what to believe. And they go to the people that they respect and see as experts, which are their physicians. And unfortunately, most of the physicians are still stuck in the conventional way to practice medicine where, we have an illness, we put on a medication versus going upstream and really trying to get it before it becomes what it is today. And so I just have made it my passion, my mission that I will not go to bed at night unless I have shouted it to the end of this earth that We have a problem and medication isn't the answer. We need to address the food, what and how we eat. So last June, I quit my corporate pharmaceutical sale job, started my own virtual metabolic health business where I go online and I truly teach people about metabolic health. I offer coaching, I offer some nutraceuticals to help. And really, I am just telling people the truth. And it's amazing the messages that fill my inbox that from people that I've never met just saying thank you for saving my life. And that right there, my friend, is why I do what I do.
Very well stated. So now, where are you based out of again?
I'm in Atlanta.
Atlanta. So you're on the East Coast. So
Can you
uh,
not tell by the
is that an
accent?
accent? No, it's all right. You know what? I'm going to give you a compliment. So uh, since I'm spending most of as you may know, even though I got a Las Vegas background and all that, nice little virtual background my manager set up, and
I was
she's
going to say, are you out there on the strip now?
no, not really on the strip. We're not jumping anywhere. I'm actually in my office, and I actually had a court hearing this morning too. I just put that because she wants to promote the website, the campaign, and she wants me to watch my language for this podcast too. So, but anyways, I was actually with one of my friends from high school, and in Las Vegas over the weekend, and we caught up just to meet up, and you kind of go over like some campaigns because he wants to help out with the campaign, and he shares similar values. He's not a carnivore, but he loves the carnivore diet. He's like, I need to get back on it. And I was like, hey, so how's your dating life, Ryan? How's it's going on? Like, are you married, divorced? He's like, no, I had some bad relations. He's like, you know what? I gotta find. He's like, I need to find a really true, proud American, blonde, beautiful girl with a Southern accent. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show you a podcast on like Monday afternoon. This lady Shannon. I mean, where everybody's already digging her, so I think you're gonna like that. And if you are able to make it in July, I think he's gonna be there. So he's actually helping me out.
There you go.
So yeah, so.
Lawyer, politician, carnivore, and matchmaker.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I know we had a discussion on that. There's a little too many beta males, I like to say, around the nation. Is you gave it a very politically correct term, all right? You gave it a wussification. I
Wishification.
would replace the W with a P, and I would probably make it a little bit more vulgar. But now that with the FCC guidelines, I gotta make sure that all my panel speeches, I really do a trial run, and I even had a blog post videos. But anyways. So I do think that you're even though you're in Georgia, I can tell you right now in Las Vegas, I'm getting a huge amount of like support, and I can tell you that you'd be always welcome there to come. So
I'm
we
gonna come.
definitely appreciate your
Yeah.
overall attributes. So give you my background, and you're gonna probably catch it because I know I sent you the link to Shafee's podcast with me, and this is our second one. We did one last year. And last year I was kind of more like informal. I just did it right out like my condo, but I did it from my office, and I was a little bit more animated because I already thought about running for Congress. So to give you a better background and everybody else that doesn't already know me, even though I've been a licensed attorney for the past 14 years, I came from the health and fitness industry. So always been a wrestler during high school. I was always an athlete, and then when I got into college, I became a personal trainer, but I was also fraternity president. So my kind of theory was, work hard, play hard. So I trained hard. I wasn't always in shape, but I partied quite a little bit more than I wanted to. Or more than I should have. Let's just put that in a safer term. So, I was a power lifter more in college, where I was actually at 195 pounds. I'm only 5'9", so I'm like just kind of a stocky Italian guy, but I was 195 pounds because you're egoed when you're in your early 20s for most males. You're like just want to get big and strong.
Meathead.
Yeah, meathead, exactly. So we're trying to use meat in a good term though.
Yeah.
But anyways, so when I'm not sure if you remember, you're almost the same age as me. I think you look younger than me, but even if
I'm
you
44.
all right, so I'm turning 40 in a couple months, but I'm still going to consider you the younger one for a lot of because when you practice law, it ages you. I'm not sure if you got that. But anyways, when in 2007, 2008 hit, the market crashed. It took a big dump. I'm not sure if you remember that. The economy
Oh
tanked.
yeah.
And I remember I was just getting a communications degree because that was like the common fraternity sorority degree. I was like, yeah, I'm a personal trainer and all that. I'm making good money and I'm partying. I made good money, but I just spent it. I just was
Yeah.
spending it. I was just having fun. And then when I finally realized I'm getting a bachelor's degree and all my friends were getting degrees right before me, they weren't getting any kind of work because they were trying to send out their applications and no one was hiring because when the economy tanked, no one wants to hire. So I went to my father and I was like, you know what, Dad, I really thinking about something beyond college because it's getting very competitive. I'm not sure if I want to be a personal trainer for the rest of my life because, as you may know, Shannon, because you came from, I can tell you're from the fitness industry, is that the fitness industry, it's a roller coaster during the year, right? So it's got its up and peak times. Everybody wants to come in like, New Year's resolution, but September through the end of the year, it tanks. No one's, it's like right before the holidays, and people like, I'm just gonna make up for it in January. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the roller coaster. So I asked my father, who is also an attorney, and his brother is an attorney, and his other brother is a retired judge, and his uncle is an attorney, his other uncle is an attorney, and their kids are attorneys. So I'm like the youngest of the Brandlins, and I have two older brothers, but they're nothing like me for many different reasons. I said, "Hey, what do you think about me going to law school?" And he laughed because he knew how much I partied. He called me the skinnier version of John Belushi. He's like, no, he's like, you gotta sober up to get into law school. You know that, right? I was like, no, I want to prove you wrong. I've been an athlete before, and let me just prove you wrong. So I studied my butt off. I stopped partying, and I got into a small Christian law school. I didn't get into Harvard or anything else like that. I went to a small Christian law school called Trinity Law School. Yeah. So I never like brag about my law school because my law school actually had like a lower passage rate. So I had to study my butt off. But what I did is I wanted to take a new level. I was like, hey, I can't train at 24-hour fitness anymore because I'm going to be doing night classes. So what I need to do is I need to run my own training business, and I need to get really into this. I want to get in as best shape as possible. So one of my colleagues referred me to my registered dietitian who works with all natural bodybuilders, and he's still my friend today. He gave me a good thank you, and he's actually closer to you. He's out in Tennessee now. His name is Chuck Rudolph, and he's also the research and development kind of coordinator for MRM. So I'm not sure if you know the
Yeah.
supplement
Yep.
brands, but
Yep.
yeah. So I'm still connected with him, and we still kind of talk back and forth. But he's like, hey, you're about 195. I could tell you have a good frame. Let's get you as lean as possible, and I could put you on a stage. Probably about 7 months from now, but you're going to need to get down to like 150 pounds, 150, 155 pounds. You're going to need to get to 3% body fat, but I want to maintain all your muscle. So he changed my entire workout regimen, and I actually went on a ketogenic diet, but it was carb cycling. So it was basically doing fish, vegetables, and fats. Well, kind of the fats weren't like carnivore fats. They're like almonds and like avocado and olive oil or something like that, or you just eat like more salmon to replace the fats.
Yeah.
You would do that for 3 days straight, and then every third day you would cycle with a huge amount of carbohydrates, where you would basically go 3 days no carbs, and the third night it was like it's like the blessing. You're like starving because you're all in ketogenic state, but you weren't doing too high fat though. You're doing like moderate fat, and then but the third night you would load up on like 2 pounds of sweet potatoes. So imagine you're starving yourself of carbs, and you just feed it. But it has a metabolic trick to it, and they do it in the bodybuilding industry. And I actually end up getting very lean. I think you saw some of my previous photos. I didn't want my Speedos to be put all over my campaign because even my friends, he's like, I'm not sure if you're running a campaign or if I'm funding your like your OnlyFans page, but this is kind of like, I'm like, no, no, just it's all right. It just so reach out to help
Are
my
they not mutually exclusive? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I'm sure the California State Bar is going to like that too. But anyways, but I ended up doing very well in competitions and actually boomed my business where I was able to pay for my own law school with my own training business because it did very well. And actually, I saved up money to buy a house right after I passed the bar exam too. So it did very well. And the last couple contests I won was Mr. Los Angeles Natural, and that's what got me in the magazines too in 2010. Passed the bar exam, and then I was like, all right, I'm still going to keep fitness on the weekends, but I'm going to be working at a big firm in downtown LA for the first couple of years. Then I went into private practice. But I never had to go to doctors before that. Okay, I just say that I did a lot of injuries because when you're intoxicated in college and you mix alcohol, females, and a bunch of stunts, you do a lot of stupid stuff. So doing backflips off the roof, I had some broken legs here or there, and I always got rushed to the hospital. But it was always orthopedic injuries. Never had to go to a doctor for not feeling good. So in 2015, 16, I'm not sure what really provoked it. Some believe it was some Lyme disease and co-infections, but I started getting very sick and where I couldn't get out of bed. I used to do the 5 a.m. workouts and I was like, God, I can't even get out of bed. I'm just so nauseous. It wasn't just my gut, it was my joints, like head to
yeah.
toe. So I made the mistake by going to conventional doctors, and that's what introduced me to pharmaceuticals in 2016. And basically, every pharmaceutical you imagine for any kind of gut dysfunction was the worst thing you could do for your gut. So it was all just a bunch of laxative antibiotics and corticosteroids, which completely annihilated my gut. I was having gut discomfort before that, but after that, I had complete gut inflammation to the point where a piece of my intestine got so inflamed they had to remove it.
Oh, wow.
I still don't think the removal is necessary, but I'm almost positive the pharmaceuticals provoke that. And none of the doctors had any dietary recommendations. I was like, all right, I just got to see what foods fit me. I wasn't doing like completely keto, but I wasn't eating a bunch of crap. I was mostly on food. I was eating some carbohydrates, but I can tell you right now, the pharmaceuticals, it completely annihilated my test. And so in April of 2017, they finally recommended to remove a piece of my intestine, and it was the worst procedure possible. So when they removed it, first of all, I woke up from the surgery prematurely, where they were sewing up my intestines, and I woke up. So you can imagine how bad you're going to feel when that happens. So I screamed in pain to the point where the entire hospital heard me. They gave me morphine and tramadol to put me back to sleep. And then they released me without making sure my bowels were working. So I was having complications for a couple of weeks after that. And then in 3 weeks after that, I developed a huge lump the size of like a grapefruit,
Wow.
2 inches. So my main incision area was 2 inches. It's right up my belt line, 2 inches below my belt belly button was my main incision area. So you imagine like a big grapefruit growing below your belly button. And basically, I took the photos, and the doctor had to cut it open. He said, "Get to the ER." But
Oh
when
my
they
God.
cut it open, no anesthesia. I was awake during the entire thing. So that's what kind of built me a pain tolerance too. And I remember when they were cutting it open, I even told Shafi that I was biting my tongue and I was pretty much bleeding from my mouth because I was in.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, do they know that you're a law?
Yeah.
I mean, do they know about lawsuits?
No, trust me, medical doctors get the most protection in California because there's a medical malpractice cap of, was it 250,000? And not just that, there's a lot more restrictions. California courts favor doctors over patients. They favor employees over employers, and they favor tenants over landlords because I'm a landlord, and I actually, most of my clients are kind of run their organizations, but they always favor the doctors over their patients. I'm gonna tell you that right now, just based on, because I've done medical malpractice different. Because actually after this, which actually was kind of like, motivated me to start doing medical malpractice. So like, hey, if you screw someone up, you got to make sure it's compensated for that. So, but anyways, after they cut me open, they didn't even seal me back up. They just said, hey, change your gauze, because as you may know, if working in the different clinics and hospitals, sometimes if you have a really severe infection, you don't sew it back up because the moisture can actually kind of be refeeding the infection. So they wanted to dry it out. So you just change the gauze 3 times a day for a couple of weeks, and then it got infected again. They had to recut me open again.
They put a wound vac on there?
No, it was the worst kind of post-surgical treatment possible. And the only way I healed, I started doing some elimination diet. I was always just having a problem, but I was like, you know what? I need to get this infection just healed. I was
Yeah.
already malnourished. I did a 10-day water fast. But I've done fast before that, but this is the only time I refed on meat. And that's where I kind of put the two to do together. We're like, hey, maybe if I'm so inflamed, I can only respond to me. And that's where and actually in 2018, I want to get like more into it. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
if I only eat meat for the rest of my life, I want to make sure I do this right. And so I conversed with Michaela Peterson before she got
Yep.
really popular.
Yep.
Then I conversed with Dr. Baker before he became really popular. Yeah, so in 2018, and then I said, I want to get something like one-on-one kind of working with it, and I need to just get away because I was working the entire time. So I conversed with Dr. Sophia Clemens, who operates the Paleo Medicina group out of Budapest, Hungary, and we kind of Skyped, and I went over there, and I just stayed there for a week and a half, and I ate nothing but the fattiest meat, and she would not let me take any medications, and I was kind of surprised, a little concerned. I was like, I was taking glutamine powder or some things that kind of help me heal. She's like, no, no medications, no supplements. You eat
Just
meat, fat, and she did it like in her Hungarian accent, and water. That's it. And salt. That's it. Nothing else. And I was kind of like, I almost was taking some prokinetics before that, because when you have,
yeah.
restrictions in your intestines, you want to keep things moving. But I was like, well, what if I kind of get blocked up? She's like, we're going to give you plenty of fat. You're not going to have to worry about that. And that was so true, because I was eating these, in Hungary, I'm not sure if you know, they have some of the best pork in the world,
Yeah.
because it's what they feed the pork. All right. So
Yep.
most of the pork and poultry here in the United States are fed corn and soy. So, anyways, they don't feed their corn and soy, and they feed them basically.
Acorn.
It's yeah, acorns,
Yeah.
insects, and squash, and a different
Yeah.
kind of different alternatives, and that's why they have a better omega 3 to 6 ratio. And before I go on to that, right before I cut my intestines open, I became a dietetic technician, and I was doing my RD program, but this is where the surgery stopped it. And then when I started healing, I started said, I came back. I was like, oh my God, I've been taught everything wrong from the AND, the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics. Eatright.org has been full of shit, right? So someone needs to speak out about this. We gotta. I should have been keto the entire time, but now that I'm carnivore keto, I don't believe everybody needs to be carnivore. And I kind of stole that to you over the phone too, Shannon. I had that discussion with Dr. Kills. Is that no, people need to drastically reduce their carbohydrate consumption, but they also just need to get a lot of their crap out of their diet
Yeah.
and less pharmaceuticals. And that's what I think is really deteriorating our nation's health. And so, anyways, I was going to get my master's in dietetics so I could get the RD credential through a master's program. But the only thing is, when I went to the interview, I was just a little bit too more outspoken, as you probably know, can guess, is that they're like, hey, so you've got a really unique background. You're licensed in two different states, and now you want to become like, want to get your master's in dietetics. What's making you kind of make this change? You've been an attorney and you got these, you're a real estate broker too. So why do you want to be part of this or the USC program? I said, well, I think there needs to be some changes. I think people are demonizing meat where meat shouldn't be demonized. I think you just need to focus on quality meat. I think we should focus on getting quality meat from true farm to table kind of practices, true traditional values. And I think you need to flip the food pyramid upside down. And I just basically blatantly told them that. And you may know I don't really have too much of filter. You'll probably see it on Shafee's.
And they loved that
Yeah,
answer
yeah. But
too.
anyways, they kind of all looked at me. They're like, we don't think you're a very positive, suitable candidate for us. And I'm like, no, it's because I'm speaking the truth. You guys don't like it. Anyway, so I got my MBA, but then when the lockdown started, a lot of my friends were government employees, and a lot of them are nurses, and they were all getting forced vaccinated and to keep their jobs, and no one was speaking out. And I was the only attorney in LA County that spoke out, said not only should you not trust kind of vaccines, but you shouldn't. I mean, forced vaccinations is a whole nother level. If you want to get jabbed as a sheep, go
Yeah.
ahead. But when you want to force it on someone to keep their employment, that's where it becomes morally wrong. And I was speaking out against that, and I also spoke out against the mask mandates because I also healed myself with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I think I may have told you that over the phone. And I learned that medical grade hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I actually did like seminars and training on basically the different levels of atmospheric units on what it can basically heal and what becomes antimicrobial. So I was like, hey, you're taking away people's oxygen. You're doing hypercapnia. People are getting. I do trust litigation. So do you know what probate or trust litigation? It's basically when the children are fighting over their dead parents' money. That's most of my practice right now. What you do is you see dementia, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, dementia
Yeah.
used to be very common in the 80s, like when they were in their 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing getting people dementia when they're 60s. Why
Oh,
are we
type
getting?
3 diabetes. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, but I think there's a lot of things. But I think we're all oxygen deprived. So I focused on, hey, I use meat and oxygen to heal some basics. But when the lockdown and when people try to report me to the state bar for speaking out, they called me the anti-vaxxer conspiracy theorist. I'm like, no, we need to get our voices heard at higher levels. And if no one has the testicles to do it, I'm going to step up and do it. So I decided to get my PhD in public policy because most of the people in Congress right now, they either have a law background because more than half of the presidents were attorneys. People don't realize that, most of the past presidents. And anyways, I said, I'm going to get my PhD in public policy because I want to make some changes at basically a congressional level. There,
mhm.
there needs to be some changes. People shouldn't be force-fed pharmaceuticals, and they shouldn't be threatened to take pharmaceuticals to keep their own jobs. And I is personal experience since I was person. So yeah, I do have a very personal bias against pharmaceuticals since I was wrecked. But
Yeah.
it just when I thought of like when you do the history of like how many vaccinations you had when we were born. I was born in
Right.
'85. I know you were born a few years before that, and like when you think of like how many vaccines and pharmaceuticals you were given to kids back then, it was a lot different than right now.
Yeah.
And you just seen that people are just becoming pill poppers, and I think and my biggest concern is that doctors are all and Shafee can confirm this too is that medical schools nowadays, the
Yeah.
entire curriculum is based on pharmacology. If
Correct.
for every problem, don't think of a natural health way to fix it. They don't talk about getting enough, vitamin D through sunlight and eating quality foods and getting some browning and some stress relief and getting some exercise every week. No, they said no, we got a pill for that. And I see that as a huge moral problem. And that's where when I was finished, I'm actually in the finish line of my PhD. But I
I love it all.
yeah, but right after the election, I kind of
Keep
connected
talking.
Sure.
I'm just gonna turn my light back on.
All right. I can still see you, so.
Okay. Well, it changed a lot. Let's see. There we go. There we go.
All right, cool. It's bright.
Much better, right?
Yes. But anyways, I got connected with I got a special invite because when they looked at my background, I was, hey, I'm thinking about running for Congress for 2028 or 2030. I'm getting my PhD, but I want to get my and when I saw that, when Trump got elected and basically, when RFK joined forces, I'm like, I really want to meet the whole group. I think I have something to contribute. And when they looked at my background, they're like, hey, you can go to DC, meet with us in inauguration. I got special tickets to the MAHA ball. So that's the MAHA. So I'm not sure if you know, but every time they have an inauguration, you go to DC, there's like these balls functions. They're like 20 or 30 different functions all around the city. So Trump had a separate one. I think it was the Starlight or something else. But RFK had his own one, but he was with the MAHA ball. And that's where I met Congressman Tom Massey too. And I met a few other people that were going there. And I got to meet like the entire group and felt so connected. They're like, hey, well, why don't you run in 2026? I'm like, really? I'm finishing up my PhD. I'm just turning 40. I almost want to admit, like, I think I've been going to school ever since I passed the bar exam for a different credential. I kind of want to take a vacation. I'm like, no, with your background, we're going to give you a campaign management team and we can help you kind of arrange. We can help you get organized. We help you get kind of registered. And they looked at the fact that I was California, Nevada back and forth. And they're like, don't waste time with California. It's voter fraud, a lot of other issues too, and too expensive. We really can see you as running for basically the third district of Nevada. And that's where I own property. And that's where I'm, yeah, like this past weekend when you saw those photos. Yeah. So I made the Kennedy statement, a couple months ago. I made the announcement on Fox News and a couple other shows afterwards. But yeah, that's where I made it a very true desire. I'm going to fulfill my dreams, but I'm going to be risking everything. And as you already may know, I'm going to have a lot of supporters, but I'm going to have a lot of haters because when you speak out against vaccines and they call you anti-vax conspiracy theorist, and you say that I'm a Republican, or you can say, oh, he's a right-wing conspiracy theorist and he's a fascist. It makes a lot of bold statements. I'm trying to find a bipartisan balance, but no, my goal is that we need to make changes at a congressional level with how the institutions are basically teaching our future doctors. And not just that, I'm concerned, and you may get involved, but um, have you ever worked with the schools, like, their dietetics programs with the schools and
No,
see what they're fed?
no, I know enough.
Yeah.
I was
So
brought up in my nieces and nephews that it's horrible.
yeah, no, that was something that also concerned me because even after I was finishing my DTR program, I was doing rotations with RD here in LA, but we went to the charter schools to see like how their food lunch programs were, but they're all eating a bunch of crap, and there's like no quality real protein on the plate. It was almost like they're eating like crackers and fruits and vegetables, and like, but there's no meat, and they demonize meat. I'm like, you're gonna have some really malnourished children, it drew me some huge concerns. I was like, that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
So I really think we need to get back to our true traditional roots, and that's why I'm bringing the Maha element to my campaign. And since I've been working with Dr. Shafee because I look at ever since 2018. I became like so accustomed, I owe the carnivore community my life. That's why I started doing pro bono work for all the carnivore like community and like their doctors, set up their nonprofits, and now I'm copywriting podcasts and I'm writing cease and desist letters to people that are talking crap on people on YouTube and making defamatory statements. And the only problem, I'm not sure if you know though, because everybody asks about defamation, right? So, Shannon, you're going to get very popular. You might get more popular than me for a good reason. But you may become a public figure, and there's a difference. So you have private individuals and you have a public figure. When you're a public figure, you actually have less protection under the basically elements of defamation because you're exposed to the public where they're allowed to basically make some statements. It has to be like completely malicious if you want to bring a cause of action, all that. But yeah,
Well, I've
I'm
received
taking a
some
risk. Yeah.
pretty nasty,
Yeah.
comments and messages and
Oh
things
no,
on
I'm already getting some
my
trolls
social
and stuff
media.
like that. And beyond our health, um, you know, I made this a statement in Dr. Shafee's podcast. Some people didn't like it, but I was really kind of confused on why they thought it was wrong. When I said I didn't like the fact that they're trying to force my nephew and a lot of my friends' kids that are like, 10 years old to go to drag shows. And I think that is morally wrong. That's going to be screwed up. We're talking about mental health is a huge issue right now. What do you think that's going to be doing to the kids? And California just implemented the Menstrual Equality Act for All, where they require tampon machines to be put in all the little boys' restrooms from grades third through eighth. Do you know how old a third grader is?
8,
Yeah,
maybe.
8 or 9 years old. You got some 8-year-old boys, and they're gonna go in like, "Ooh, tampon machines. What is that for? Oh, that's to stop the bleeding from your vagina." I don't have a vagina. Are you sure about that? And
I
and
mean, at 8 years
yeah,
old, I was afraid of a tampon. Like,
exactly. It's too
we
young
would
for a
have
woman too.
we
It
would have
just
dropped them in water and watched them swell up. We wouldn't even,
yeah.
you know.
Actually,
So,
when we're wrestling, sometimes if we didn't have like to stop the
oh
blood
yeah,
causes,
they
we're like,
dropped
hey,
one.
we call one of the female like people in the house, say, hey, we need a tampon. We need to stop this bleeding right here. But
Yeah, yeah,
anyways, that's one of my main focuses. So I want to protect the kids. Yeah, I'm just going to be very obvious that I have a lot of my cousins are female athletes, and I don't like the fact they're getting forced to compete against transgender males in high schools. And when you think about like, why are there transgenders in high schools? Oh, it's because a lot of the state requirements are saying that you can actually have, especially what Tim Walz was kind of promoting in Minnesota, that you can have a transgender surgery without parental consent. And even beyond just the surgery itself, you got to think of what are all the medications they're giving to kids for their hormones. They're basically giving hormonal medication to a lot of kids to basically kind of decrease their testosterone. And I think that's going to really screw up with their development. So again, I really am a huge, I have huge issues when it comes up with pharmaceuticals and the public, especially when it becomes with our children.
a
So
thousand percent. I mean, it just
yeah,
needs to be taken back to like what our grandparents did, just real food,
yeah,
right? Real food, um, stuff that's not in a box with a barcode in a bag,
yeah,
right? All
exactly.
these brightly colored things that aren't even real. We just need to move away from that. And if we, people wonder why ADD is so much more these days. It's not so much more these days. It's not that we just got a population of kids that now have ADD. No, it's what we're feeding them, right? It's what we're feeding them. Their faces
Food,
are
food and medications, bad food and bad medications can be a
and
whole combination.
electronics. Their brains hyper,
Exactly.
stimulated and yeah, I'm with you. I think it's definitely time and I think that it's a good we're on the precipice of something really big and I do believe that it's going to be a huge battle, but everybody matters, everybody's voice matters. I yell it every day and I tell all my followers, I'm like, I'm just one, but if we all join together we're going to make a difference. And so I think that it's going to take some time, but I think that we just have to keep fighting. I know I will. And it's it's not even a political thing. It's a right or wrong thing. It's
Yeah.
a this is scientifically proven or not. And I don't think it takes a doctor or a clinician or a rocket scientist to look at our country. We're sick. 93% of our country has insulin resistance. That means look around, 7 out of the 10 people in a room with you are metabolically dysfunctional. And and how do we fix that? If we don't fix it, then we're going to wipe out our own race. Like our own humans are going to be wiped out by ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. So, yeah.
Well, so tell me, let's kind of expand on you a little bit more. So when you made this change to kind of go
Yeah.
from like the corporate world to your own private practice to
Yeah.
try to keep a better was I mean, what are some of the main things that you focus on when you get a new client or patient
Yeah.
that's basically made you basically lay out their food program and what are some simple recommendations you make for them?
Absolutely. So first thing is we look at how often do we eat? It's been ingrained in our head that we need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Chris, if you don't eat every 2 to 3 hours, your metabolism's going to slow down or you might starve to death,
Yeah.
right? Like,
That's what we're told with the A&D too. So yeah.
yeah. So we talk about frequency of eating that, and then we talk about our food groups, right? Most people know about if it fits your macros, but do you really understand what that means, right? it's not a calorie problem. We've been ingrained to believe eat less, move more,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter
Macro,
what
it's your
is
macros. Yeah.
your macros. You
Yeah.
know, if you want to eat 1,200 calories of donuts, by all means do it, because if it's 1,200 calories, it's okay. No, it's the quality of those calories. It's what hormonal response those calories elicit. So I like to talk to people about, regardless if you're diabetic or not, is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the nutrient that is not essential. And yet it's the one that most people eat. It's the one that's in the school lunches. It's the one that people are drawn to. Why? Because it's addictive. I mean, let's be honest, carbs are good. Who doesn't like carbohydrates? They are yummy. They elicit that dopamine response. Like we are addicted. And so when I talk about let's start cutting them back, and I'm not saying everybody has to go zero, but it depends on where you're at. Are you diabetic? Are you obese? Do you have autoimmune conditions? Are you highly inflamed? And let's take it back to the basics. Then let's focus on the two nutrients that are essential to life, ones that Americans or even the world is deficient in. Number one, fat. People are afraid of fat. We've been just just told our whole life, do not eat fat. It causes heart disease. It causes high cholesterol. Stay away from it. So I want to
Since
dispel
the
that.
80s, right?
Oh, even
Yeah.
before this,
Oh yeah,
but
because that was the fat craze was began in the 80s, and that's where he basically switched to going, high fat to low fat and then high
yeah,
carb.
eat all those Snackwell's fat-free cookies that you want. But so we talk about adding back animal fat. That's the satiating fat. That's what our brain, breast milk is all fat and cholesterol. That's what we need to thrive,
And your
right?
hormones, so too, that's a huge thing.
Hormones, right? I mean, cholesterol is our brain. It's the sheath around our cells. It's like you said, it's pro hormones. But fat and protein. And when I talk about protein, it look, this is not a pro animal or pro plant. This is facts.
Yeah,
Animal
biological
protein.
value, best
Yeah,
absorption, basically. Yeah.
yeah. Animal proteins are more biologically available. We absorb them more. They contain all of the essential amino acids. So we focus on eating less frequently. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting,
Fasting.
right? I fast 16 hours at least myself a day, and that is not through grit and willpower. That is my body is metabolically flexible.
Yeah.
I burn my own fat for energy. I burn ketones, which
And it
are,
shows.
well, thank you. I try. And then when I eat, I don't count calories. I don't weigh and measure. I eat till I'm completely satisfied. And it's animal-based proteins with the good fats. And I am not carnivore, so I'll add some high fiber vegetables because I thoroughly enjoy them. And that's what I eat. I don't snack. Why? Not because I'm like limiting myself, but when you eat to your body and your body is nourished, you don't need to snack. We're not 3, we're not 7. We're not in a growing state. We don't need to snack. And when you do that, it's amazing what happens on an inflammatory level, on a hormonal level. The weight just melts off of people. And they're like, I've never seen anything happen like this before. And that's because when you eat by deprivation, hunger always wins. So it's only going to last for a minute. Then you're in the gym. I mean, you see the people, the same people that we've seen for 6 years on the treadmill for the entire time that you're at the gym. And
They
they look
never do any weight training and they're depleting their muscle tissue. It
yeah.
shows why their metabolism's falling to crap.
Yep. So it creates a terrible cycle. So back to your question, intermittent fasting, a low carbohydrate diet, and high fiber, high fat, protein.
And
Fiber, fat, protein.
I do have one component that you should add on to it.
Salt, salt,
Um,
iodine, and water.
oh yeah, no. One thing I've realized that benefited my health, I think it just sparked up in the last couple of years. I've always been kind of a joker, but people need to find laughter in life, and that's where I didn't like the fact that everybody becomes so offended by everything. And this is the problem I have with the beta males. Like anything is well, and that's very impolitically incorrect. I'm like, come on, this is why I like Dave Chappelle and the old style George Carlin or Ricky
Well, people
Gervais.
get so offended, like
Yeah, exactly.
easily
But offended
offended.
by anything nowadays. So if I don't, not just that, now they have all these pronouns. I don't even know all these pronouns. I'm like, oh, you should not direct me by. I was like, well, you look like actually look like a male. I'm not sure what to call you, but what do you go by they? But you're saying they. It's kind of like it's getting me confused because I don't think I'm speaking with more people. But one thing I did kind of do a lot. So look at part of my PhD program, you do a lot of qualitative research. So you look at a lot of just basic, like, just based on, narratives and just in-person one-on-one, interviews or focus groups and then you do analysis through their own blood testing. You could do a combination with a crossover of public policy and public health, which is kind of like I like my PhD. And you realize that, laughter and humor has been associated with longevity,
Yeah.
stress relief. And that's why I'm trying to bring back, not only do I want to make America great again and make America healthy again, most important, but I want to make offensive humor great again too. So that's kind of bring it back. So
I
that's
mean, if you look at
yeah.
some of the poorest countries in the nation, I think there was a Netflix documentary called Happiness,
Okay, I
and
gotta check that out.
basically all it went to the poorest nations in the world, and it talked about like, tell me about your life, tell me like they had nothing, but they had family and they had love and they were so happy. And that's something, Ben Azadi talks about that. He talks about
I do
vitamin
follow him
G.
as well. Yeah.
Vitamin G is gratitude. And I am a huge fan of that. Prayer, like, whoever you believe in, right?
I'm
Whoever your
Catholic.
faith.
I'll say that out proudly, even though I'm going
Yeah.
to get demonized.
Oh, I'm a proud Christian. I pray to Jesus every day.
Yeah.
And that makes my heart happy. That fulfills me. That gives me purpose. And that is where I draw my energy and that is where I draw my passion and my drive and to be better for everybody. And that includes, I mean, we look at what is healthy. It is not just our food, but who you surround yourself with, right? It talks about it in the Bible. Who you surround yourself with is who you become. I want to be around people way better than me so that I can become great, right? How you sleep. What kind of, do you touch the ground? Do you look at the sun? I can't tell you. I used to smear sunscreen. Well, as a kid growing up,
Oh yeah.
well,
I'm
I never,
Italian, so I don't have to worry about getting sunburned.
well,
I can tell you that I just
I
get.
freckles burn, but growing up, I grew up on a farm with horses. Number one, we never wore shoes. We drank well water. We didn't have fluoride. We
Yeah.
ate our own chickens, pigs, cows. We had our own eggs. We grew our own garden.
You're a pure blood. That's awesome.
We used to swim in a pond, and my mom would be like, "Oh, please don't go underwater and drink that water." But we did, and I really look back now and I think, wow, that populated my, gut.
Yeah.
That helped build my immune system.
Yeah. Herd immunity. I think that's something that should be focused again. Kids are too afraid to. I mean, I don't like the fact that they're putting like these face shields and like latex gloves on these kids and not let them play in the playground. Like,
No.
and they're just keeping them inside with electronics all day, and that's where that drews a huge concern. Is like, I'm glad. My favorite nephew with my brother that I'm probably more closer with. I mean, I like that he's making him get out in sports, but I have some
Yeah.
nieces and nephews that I don't get to see, and it's because I don't get along with their parents. But yeah, they're kept inside most of the time. I'm like, no, this, and they're actually getting sick more. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
We need the
I
sun.
think they should associate with something.
Yeah. We need the sun. We need the dirt. And actually, I mean, I played sports. I grew up, I played sports with boys through high school. We didn't have enough girls to have a soccer team. So I learned to be tough. I learned that everybody can't win all the time. I learned that, you know, some people are better at things than I am, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's now people don't do that,
Yeah, I
it's
know. We should have some more strong men and women, and you and I had this conversation over the phone. Even though you gave it the very soft, politically correct term as wussification, I call that the pussification, and I call it the beta males. And I don't want to say, we need more people with balls because I don't think women should have balls, even though there's a lot of people that claim they're women with balls nowadays. But I think we need more people with a spine. And I think we need more people to speak out and not be afraid of getting shunned by everybody else just because they actually see a little bit more outside the box. to basically go back to your natural metabolic health rather in using food as medicine rather than relying on pharmaceuticals and basically face shields 24/7. So I'm glad. So and like you said, like if you go into a sport, you're not guaranteed you're going to be the best. And like I'm not like the top carnivore. I do believe I'm the best candidate overall for a lot of different reasons, but I don't think I'm like the best in shape carnivore or anything else like that. And I don't consider myself like the prime steak, but I'm more than like let's just say I'm more than
You're
USA.
passionate. You're
Yeah, yeah,
passionate about what you do and you believe in it and you're
yeah,
going to, that's the thing is people are, I don't know, like a lot of the people that I help and work with, they're so afraid. They've been so like fear has been instilled in them by their medical provider that if they don't take this high blood pressure med or they don't take this statin or they don't take this insulin, then their health is going to deteriorate. But in all honesty, their health isn't improving by them being on it anyway.
yeah.
It's just, and so I think that, I mean, for me, like, uh, I have a TikTok account, which I'm not very great at. I mean, try to teach a 40
My
something year
managers do. I've been on
old.
LinkedIn the year, so my
I'm on
manager's getting on
LinkedIn,
here.
I'm on, but Facebook, I get a lot of, is my probably my biggest platform. And
I
uh
noticed you have quite a bit of followers on Facebook too.
yeah,
So.
but people just want the truth. They're like, Shannon, no one ever told me that. Why don't I know about that? I've been diabetic for 30 years. No one's ever told me to cut the carbohydrates. No one's ever told me. Every single day, my inbox fills up with all I did was what you said.
Yeah.
I'm down 50 pounds. I'm down 80 pounds. I'm down 115 pounds. I'm on off all my meds. Why did my doctor never tell me that?
Yeah,
You know?
well, then you realize that the doctors, when they're taught on pharmacology, they don't have patients anymore. They have
And they
customers.
have one nutrition class, one
Yeah,
nutrition class.
exactly. I know I covered that with Dr. Shafee in our first podcast last year, is that most doctors are very uneducated in nutrition. They don't actually know anything because even the most prestigious medical schools in the entire United States, I think they spend like their entire kind of like term and even including their residency after that. I think they spend between 15 to 20 hours or something to that extent. If that most, that's the most prestigious, but most of them will spend a couple hours, if anything, and they don't know anything. And if you have, and I stated this to Dr. Shafee, I'm a firm believer that if you go to a doctor and you have problems and the doctor gives you medication without asking about
Yeah,
your background, your details, what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What is your diet and what is your lifestyle? And he just straight up gives you medications. You don't have a doctor, you have a drug dealer. And I
right,
think that's what people need to focus on too.
right.
So towards the last part of this podcast, I mean, then I'm very proud to have you as my first participant too.
Thank you. I'm flattered.
Yeah. So so I am learning the meat stock, but in Dr. Kiltz, I think he's gonna broadcast the podcast I did with him in Austin, Texas a couple weeks ago. I think he's gonna broadcast it this Friday, but I invite you to watch it because we make a point that even though I'm known as a carnivore lawyer, I don't believe everybody has to be carnivore. I think those with very sensitive autoimmune conditions and certain
Yeah.
backgrounds or
There's a
certain
place
illnesses,
for it
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really good elimination diet, but no, I think a lot of people in general are just ketogenic is like the way to be to be honest with you. And I don't think I mean avocados actually you'll be surprised, but I don't eat avocado, but most of the carnivore community they include avocado. There are some things that are like safe and because I also believe that certain plants can be used medicinally. And I think
Yeah.
was it Elliot Overton? He's another podcaster, but he started off as carnivore. He's like, no, you use the meat to nourish and you use the plants as medicine. And I think that was a good kind of statement. So I want
And
to
I
invite, yeah,
drink mate every day.
yeah.
A yerba mate concentrate
Sweet.
that
Straight
is
natural caffeine.
plant, but it's a concentrate.
Yeah.
And so it suppresses my appetite. It increases my own GLP-1. It improves mood and focus. It gives you great energy, and it also increases insulin sensitivity. So it's a win-win. The caffeine isn't like jittery. It's not synthetic caffeine. It's
Yeah,
natural.
exactly.
Um,
Smart.
so there's a place for things, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm glad we can come to the consensus. So the meat stock is actually more of like a health community. So I like my flyer, I made it so it's not just the carnivore community, it's to the entire ketogenic community, but also all the functional doctors go, I represent some of the functional doctors that are basically distributing peptides. And I know we had a discussion about that,
Yeah,
BPC 157, thymosin
yeah.
beta, thymosin alpha 1, you even got KPV, and you even got the love, have you ever tried the love peptides?
No.
All right. Google Kiss Peptide. It's not just for women, it's for men too. So they call it like they call it the mojo peptide. It not only does it increase your libido, it increases your testosterone for men, but for some reason it gets them very in the mood. Very interesting factors. I don't know how it works, but I'll look into that. But
I
anyways,
mean, it's TB 500 and BCP 157.
exactly. Great. Naturally, they're
Absolutely.
just a mix of amino acids that can have a huge healing mechanism on the body
Yeah.
because it's been shown to kind of like, increase your healing capacity. So I think
Yeah.
what was it angiogenesis, the creation of red blood vessels where your body starts regenerating faster. And that's what they proved with the clinical studies with BPC 157. So I'm a study nerd. I like studying all this on the side, and I don't have, even though I've been practicing law for the past 14 years, my true passion is in health and fitness too. But I want to see if we can. I know you're going to be limited on how many people you can bring from Unicity, right? But we're going to probably have more than one function. And the last thing I'm going to conclude with, because Brandlin, chrisbrandlin.com, you'll see the link for the meetup. So I want to expand that to the entire keto community. We actually should have some people from Team Kennedy there. So it should be very large. And but I also want to ask you the last kind of part of this podcast. So let's just say that if I am elected in on November 3rd, 2026, so I think that's the midterm date. I win primaries, I win that. And if I am elected to basically a congressional seat, and you have options to propose something at these hearings, if you were in my shoes, what would be the first change that you would want to make that Bobby Kennedy has not already kind of initiated?
Oh, wow. That's a big ask. Well, number one, before I answer that, I have to just the American Diabetes Society, I want to put that out there to your community, is a new society that
Okay.
is led by Dr. Ken Berry
Oh,
and Dr. Ben
actually, you know
Bigman.
what? I think I may have heard of that because I've been following him quite a bit too.
Yeah.
So
Dr. Eric Westman, and several others. I'm on the founding board. So we are coming in, and whereas the American Diabetes Association is about managing, we're about reversing. Our mission is through food, a low carb, ketogenic, carnivore, intermittent fasting diet teach you that you can reverse your diabetes. So that's a huge platform for me, like to get out for people to think that, to know that it is reversible. But one of the things that I think, wow, um,
question, huh? We're expecting it. I know. See,
he,
we're scripted.
I
I
mean,
want to surprise you. So
I just think that we need more study. We need people not to be afraid of the keto diet. We need people not to be afraid of intermittent fasting. We truly need people not to be afraid of food, of like, why can't nutraceuticals or natural options in food be the first line therapy? Is instead of pharmaceuticals. Doctors have their standards of care, and I really think that some of these things need to be included on people's health insurance. Like the supplements that I use with my patients or clients, why can those not be covered on their health insurance? So
exactly. And that's going to be part of my campaign too, because you're going to control a lot of the funding. And although I made a comment that people didn't like in Dr. Shafee's video, where, I mean, there was a rumor, actually, Nancy Mace kind of made a comment about the congressional hearing about the $8 million that were kind of used for transgender rat surgeries. And, I'm like, there was that necessary? I'm like, last time I checked, to cut off a rat's wiener, it didn't really cost. I'm not sure, you really overpaid. So that's the first thing. But you have funds that if you want to use it for clinical trials. And the problem with a lot of clinical trials, if you may look, is they're always biased because
they're
big
funded
pharma's
by,
got yeah, exactly. Pharmaceuticals have their hands in everything. So pharmaceuticals are going to be funding most of the clinical trials. But if you can reserve some of the federal funds to be used for clinical trials to see if some natural health mechanisms, I think that should be more worthy to see, like, if we can put together some funds for clinical trials for either keto or carnivore for
yeah.
before and after, just a nailed a tie it with like a certain participant study and a certain
Nick Norwitz is,
we can prove that it's going to be beneficial. I know there are
yeah.
certain already ones, but there's always going to be some roadblocks. So that's what
And
I'm
regenerative farming, like showing people, like, you know what,
exactly. There's
isn't necessarily like people think that, cow farts are ruining our world, and it's
Yeah.
not the case. So I think, teaching people, getting farming back in the schools, teaching kids how to grow plants and animals and livestock. And I mean, I can't wait. I think it's so exciting to see what is going to happen.
Yeah, it
And
should be. I want to make sure I don't get shot for the next 18 months, but that's what we're shooting for.
well,
Hey,
let's hope not. I
I
mean,
know. Hey, weird question. Talking about dogs going to carnivore. This is a quick question.
uh,
Um, I met with some veterinarians. They kind of would explain to me that canines are obligate carnivores, that like mostly carnivores, and but felines are like hyper carnivores. That their stomachs their acidity of their stomach is made to digest meat. Have
yep.
you kind of followed that with your dog, or do you have a certain kind of diet that you feed with your dog?
Oh, look, you're talking to a dietitian and a low carb one. So my
Good,
dog does not eat any type of milk bones, any type of kibble.
good.
He eats his treats are, dehydrated meat,
Yeah,
really.
no, that's what I thought. I usually been doing ground meat, and I use a company called We Feed Raw, and I want to basically promote a lot of these
I love it.
companies
Yeah,
that are like, basically natural health kind of veterinarians that are
oh,
thinking,
I'm all about it. I think
yeah,
we
Remy.
over vaccinate our dogs. I'm all about titer, checking titers in our dogs. But I feed an air dried one called Food for Sundays. So it's air dried beef, beef heart, beef liver. Um, and those are the top three ingredients, but it looks like little beef jerky. And yeah, he doesn't eat. My dog is super spoiled.
Guys, you've been so here. I'm not. Last thing I know, I want to
That's
promote
mine.
too is oh sweet, very cute. So as you know, French bulldogs have like the worst rashes.
Yeah.
So the only thing that cleaned this guy's
Oh,
basically going to carnivore. So
yeah.
this is my body bar dinner. So, but anyways, he eats all meat. So I'm very fortunate that
Well,
I
look at the obesity in our animals and the diabetes. There's our dogs don't shouldn't be diabetic.
exactly. I think, and especially when you think about what we're feeding our dogs, thinking our children, I think there should be different kind of changes. Oh, so last thing, because I know you got to get ready for your live chat on Facebook, and I want to thank you again for your time. Where can people find you?
Oh, wow. So I will send you my link tree, but I am on Facebook as Shannon Davis. Um, you'll see my picture. I'm on I'm on TikTok, and please don't judge. I am not an actress.
That's right.
SL Davis 6580. I'm
Okay.
on the same for Instagram, and then Shannon Davis on LinkedIn. I just started an X too, so I'm trying to
Yeah,
do.
my manager put me on X too, and I have no idea what's getting posted on there too. So I really should probably check it out.
Well, you're lucky. You have somebody manage. Look, I'm a army of one. I'm trying to like do it all. So,
That's
you know.
right. Well, hey, Shannon, I'm gonna let you go. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully we can have you come back soon.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
No problem.